It's Thursday, the 5th of December 2024, and in this evening's show we catch up on Sunday's predictable FA Cup second round exit at a sparsely populated Bloomfield Road against Birmingham CIty. And secondly, last night's fine-ish win at Shrewsbury to record back-to-back league wins, the first since September. We're also going to look ahead to Rotherham on Saturday as the games keep coming thick and fast with Blackpool's third game in 6 days. I'm John Aspinall, and this is Seaside's podcast match reaction show. Shrewsbury 1, Blackpool 2. And relax. That was a mouthful, a real mouthful. Just got Tim and Nick this evening. Nick has been saying in the green room, let's keep this to 45 minutes.
Famous last words.
We always say this, don't we?
With your audio, I think 30 minutes will do.
There's always something goes wrong just as we're about to go on. So yeah, apologies if Nick's audio is a bit muffled this evening. It literally happened before we came on. And yeah, that's why we are a tad late. No Mitch, unfortunately, so no monologues. He has left us a little gift, but we'll come to that. So Tim, you'll have to be our
Christmas
main.
come early, is it? Mitch handing out the presents
In the form of match statistics.
All right, okay. He's not dressing up as Santa then.
I think he'd be the Grinch more than Santa.
I'm going to say how sad I am now. I saw the when we were waiting for the show just to come through there, and you were spouting forth. I saw Florit Salopia, and my Latin isn't up to scratch these days, so I had to Google it to see what it stood for on their crest.
Shrewsbury.
Yeah. May Shropshire flourish. Apparently, it's a Latin for that, but they didn't flourish on Wednesday night, did they?
Nearly did. They nearly did. But speaking of flourishes, there was the second round FA Cup, just to cover briefly before we start. There won't be a flourish, really. It's just pretty much me and you, Tim, and a handful of the hardy souls. We're in Bloomfield Road to watch this.
We could have had Pathé News there, couldn't they, talking up the cup, sort of like, we get Mr. Chumley Warner or something going, Blackpool played Birmingham, and there was cup fever in the hometown. There was absolutely none, was there? It was, to be honest, it's I get quite upset because even when we were really, really bad, and we used to get crowds of 2,000 and 3,000 when we all used to go back in the day, Q Block and all that. You'd always get 4,000. You'd always get more for the FA Cup, wouldn't you? Whatever it was, you could play the crappiest team out. You guarantee that our 3,000 crowd would go up to 4,500, and if there was a big game, it'd be more. But yeah, it's just there's nothing there anymore, is there? It's just imploded on itself because of the way teams treat it, and the clubs treat it as well. It's they don't help themselves, do they?
Sunday didn't help.
I don't think our club. There didn't seem to be any build up to it. There was, the early decision we're not opening the South, probably the right one. With hindsight, probably sent the message out there that we're not expecting many people to turn up. Don't recall much promotion, and the price was okay, but it wasn't one to get the waverers in, was it?
It needed to be a tenner for me, particularly with that being on a Sunday.
I don't think it helped because anybody who still plays football. And listen, I'm not making excuses. It's incredibly poor, whichever way we look at it. Because let's bear in mind that for those who weren't there, that 4,800 and whatever it was that John had up on the board before included pretty much 2.5 from Birmingham. There was more Birmingham than there was home fans, or at least there was at least parity. But if you had a child who plays football on a Sunday, you couldn't go because they weren't going to call the games off for that. And it's in the middle of the day on Sunday, and it's like there's like no middle ground with it. There's no. You go into the game if you live locally at 11 o'clock, 11:30. and you're not getting back until it's gone dark. So like the day's gone, isn't it? So it was incredibly bad timing. And when it's not on TV, you do wonder why it was given a 1 p.m. kickoff.
Nick, you were going to go, but you couldn't buy a ticket on the day.
Well,
I've just found that out. I just couldn't believe that. I mean, what's that all about?
I had a look on X and I saw a tweet that I think it said they'd gone off sale on Saturday. And I mean, I could have probably got one during the week, but we weren't sure whether we were having another night away or coming back. And we ended up coming back on Sunday morning. And I thought, I wouldn't have minded going. But yeah, I couldn't. And it sounds like I didn't really miss much, unfortunately. We were kind of 2-0 down in no time and wasn't really listening to the commentary the second half till we really got going and looked like we could, maybe get back into it. And it's a shame because you never know with that third round, not that with our luck with cup draws, but, could we have done like Accrington Stanley did and got Liverpool away or something, or Salford who got City, and it's nice to be in that third round draw, isn't it? But sadly it wasn't to be.
We'd have probably got Reading away.
Yeah.
Or Nottingham Forest away, had we got through. About the game itself then, Tim. Mark's put in there, definitely more Brum, a crap atmosphere once we snuffed out with our own hope with Kamikaze defender. Just before we come to that, Mark, another reason why the crowd was so low, I noticed when I was trying to add my tickets to the online ticketing system, it wouldn't let me check out, saying you need to have an adult. Except there were 2 kids and 3 adults I was buying for, and it wouldn't let me check out, saying you need to have an adult with the kids. Now I did have 3 adults, and the 3 adults were season ticket holders for 18 quid. And to pass the validation, you had to have an adult non-season ticket holder. So they hoodwinked 2 quid out of me for that. Just all little things like that. It pissed me off. It pissed me off. And I can imagine it pissing other people off who aren't as technologically literate, and they'll give up. They'll give up, saying, right, well, I can't check out, but I worked out a way how to get around it. And to do that, I had to pay 2 quid. And
there was a thread on AVFTT suggesting that people were having problems ordering online. Yeah, so I don't think it wasn't unique to you, most certainly. And, you combine that with seeing if it's right, you're not being able to buy a ticket on the day, and the lack of marketing. We probably got what we deserved, didn't we? And I was in M Block, as you know, and it was I quite enjoyed the experience of being in there for one game. I don't know whether I could sit there every game personally, but I like the view. The view of the game's great, but I still quite like the atmosphere being in the north. And but the north was incredibly sparse, albeit they did actually those there. To be fair to them, made a bit of noise, I thought, particularly in the second half. But the way we, well, to be honest, never mind the way we started, the way we played the whole of the first half, not just defending but also attacking, was probably one of the most disappointing performances I can recall in quite a long time. Particularly bearing in mind the fact we put out quite a strong lineup against Birmingham, who'd made, I think, 10 changes from the last league game. So, I mean, equally, Birmingham, I think, have enough players to put out 2 very strong sides in League One, which is most certainly...
Alfie May and Keshi coming on for subs in the second half. I was like, oh, Jesus.
Exactly. And so it looked like men and boys in the first half. I mean, it was actually embarrassing, really, the ease with which they were toying with us, and we were just running around like headless chickens. And when you bear in mind who we had out there, we didn't really have other than people who are injured, and we didn't really have an understrength side. So it was Steve Bruce, I think, to be fair to him, tried to put out a team that he thought might turn Birmingham over. And I think his body language and then what he does at half time, which we'll no doubt come to, suggests that he was incredibly disappointed. And whilst I've not listened to the interview since, I've seen some references to the fact that that's as low as he's felt since he was appointed manager. And I think the feeling's mutual, Steve. I think we all felt that way come half time. The big advantage.
It was almost like, Tim, we had our own reserve side out, but we didn't. It was Tyra a fire, Pennington, Casey, husband across about Actor, Finnegan, Norburn, Embleton, and Ballard and Joseph. You know, take Finnegan out of that, and that's a starting 10. And
I know.
Yeah, it was inevitable. I was just waiting for them to score. You know, that first 5-6 minute period. It was like they were just shooting left, right, and centre, and it was no surprise when Dykes scored after 6 minutes. Was that the one when Tyra pushed it out to him, or was that the second one? I can't remember. Which way around.
There's one which one was the one where Tyra saved it. I think that was the second one. The second one was when Tyra saves it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The first
one, everybody else just stood still and their forward ran in and scored.
I thought the first one had gone out for a goal kick, to be fair, from my viewpoint. I mean, I was obviously just sat behind.
Some people saying that.
Yeah. I was just
and then
sat
he comes across and he drills it through the crowd, doesn't he? And Tyra sort of makes it. I don't blame Tyra for that goal at all, because he came through a crowd of players, and I don't think he had much sight of it at all. But to be honest, I thought it was going to be a cricket score in the first half. I really did. And every time we crossed the halfway line, we just gave the ball away, and they came back at us. They dominated midfield. They looked comfortable all over the pitch. I thought we were on for about a 5 or 6-0 drubbing. We can say we thought the ball was out, but there's no VAR. The refs have got to play it the way they see it. If the linesman's not up, it happens, doesn't it? But it was only a reflection of the way the game was going and the way the game was being played. And, I don't think any of us really begrudged. Nobody around me was suggesting it went out, but we were obviously on the centre spot rather than down on. If I'd been in the north, I might have had a better view of it.
I was just saying, Tim, where I was sat, I was right at the back of L block, just behind you. Obviously, you were right at the back of M. I don't know if you've ever been up there. It's weird. The back of L block, it's got a concrete sort of barrier in front of it, and there's like two.
I was trying to work out why that was.
Yeah, there's two weird rows, and the back row, it's like they've shoehorned 2 rows of seats in there. They're really tight, but you're raised up on the second row on like a wooden plinth. It's all like a really Heath Robinson kind of contraption. It's like almost being back in the old West End. You bang the floor, and it's like hollow and made a big noise. Yeah, it's weird. Don't even know that was there.
M block. I mean, yeah, you get a padded seat, but Jesus, it's a bit tight. If you've got somebody with a slightly wider girth near you, they're going to be invading your body space. Because actually, the north is very good, isn't it?
I love the higher bit of the north because it's banked. You've got loads of space, haven't you?
Yeah, well, anywhere in the north, there's you have literally got a little bit of leg room and arm room behind. In literally in the M block, I was squeezed up. I mean, there's no room to move your legs. We were all commented it was cozy, bijou.
And what's the season tickets? £1,000 in there as well. Yeah, onto the first goal. Then obviously there was a bit of controversy. The fact it had gone out, Hubby's been booked. But I thought it had gone out, so I presumed it had gone out. But it was just slack defending, Tim. All right, there's a bit of indecision whether it's out or not. But again, you play to the whistle.
We had about 4 chances to get rid of it.
To get rid of it, yeah. Easily clearable.
Yeah.
And the second
we kept it. We almost like gifted it back to them. Go and have another go. See if you can score this time.
It was.
I'll have it back again. And eventually they're going to take the chance, aren't they? And they did. And it was a well struck shot. As I said, I don't blame Tyra. I don't think he saw much of it until the very last second. But it's just, I'd like to say I was disappointed, but it was actually, even in that first 6 or 7 minutes, we were getting battered. So, I had my padded seat, as David said, but other than that, I was questioning my decision to attend, my sanity for attending at that point.
Oh, we've got John Merrill's blue nose. He said BBC Comms said at the time they had a replay and the ball never went out. What do they know?
We like a good conspiracy theory, and don't we?
Defund the BBC. Second goal, Tim. Lukas, I won't pronounce his surname. It's Polish, but a shot's come in from just on the edge of the box, I think, parried away by Tyra, but parried back where it's come from, which gave Jutkiewicz, is it, a reasonable attempt just to prod it in, and he did with aplomb, and yet another error from Tyra. Seems like it's won a game.
I mean, I thought he made it.
He saved it, but he parried it back right over the centre
yeah,
spot.
But Jutkiewicz, that's how you pronounce it. Yeah. He reacts. We all our defence stood and watched it. So the shot comes in. You can't assume it's going to be. To be fair, I think it was hit with a certain amount of venom. I think it bounced up in front of Tyra. And listen, I'm not defending him because he's clearly struggling a bit. But the defence can't stand there. He got in, didn't he? He was literally on his own. Nobody else reacted apart from him, and that's disappointing because you've got to be thinking about the second ball, and we didn't. We just stood and watched. And there's we talk about general malaise amongst the fan base, but I think there's a bit of a malaise on the football pitch at the moment. Never mind in the stands. They just that first half in particular was just pretty much as poor. I know we're playing a good team, but it was pretty poor fare, wasn't it? We didn't even make a game of it in that first half. I mean, other than my padded seat and the fact that I could get a beer as soon as I walked into the ground without having to queue up, I think they were about the only redeeming features of my decision to go to the game.
It's too early for me to drink, so I didn't. I just had a cup of tea. Got my usual mortgage out.
And Nick definitely made the right decision.
Good.
Not to bother, even if it was in full.
Steve Bruce obviously didn't like what he saw at half-time. Tim, you did talk about the fact that he was so despondent in the post-match interview, and he made 4 subs at half-time, which was good to see. Something had to change. Jordan Rhodes on for Carl Joseph. I think that was just to give Joseph a rest. Dom Thompson on for Casey. Noma on for Embleton. And Fletcher on for... I put Shane Lavery in my notes. What on earth was I thinking? I've had a really bad headache today, and I've been taking Codamol, so I think I was a bit spaced out when I wrote that. Look it up. But we came out firing in the second half, Tim. It wasn't really a surprise to see us peg one back. Jordan Rhodes finishing whilst falling on the floor, ably assisted by Rob Apter. What a finish from Rhodes. Have we lost him?
He's frozen.
Yeah, and just going back before that, there was a complete change of tempo when we came out. Have I frozen or
No.
John?
No,
you did.
You're back with us now.
Oh, okay. Sorry, because I seem to be okay. So, right from the start, there was a completely different mindset. I think I didn't realise because we'd gone down for half-time beer, but apparently Bruce had come up before the start of the second half, hadn't he, on his own? So he must have given them the Brucey version of the hairdryer treatment at half-time and then left them to it to stew on what he had to say. I think it's right that he came out well before the second half and just sat there. And I think, to be fair, whatever he said and whatever and what he did in making 4 subs really created a reaction. I think we just saw we were sharper. We wanted the ball. We went at them, and it was a brave decision, because some of the players he brought on, you wouldn't automatically be thinking would do better than some of the ones that they replaced, but they did, because Joseph didn't seem to be able to keep hold of the ball. Embleton was pretty anonymous, and all of a sudden we start doing a bit of something, and then moving on to Rhodes' goal. It was a poacher's finish, wasn't it? Because he was stumbling, he was off balance, but still managed to get his shot off, and he looked really, really pleased to have scored a goal, because I know I think this season he's only scored in the Mickey Mouse Cup, hasn't he? And he looked genuinely pleased, and then, you know, for him to go off not long afterwards was incredibly disappointing for us and for him, because I think we probably lost a little bit of momentum after that. But it was a good goal, and there's and I mentioned the North, actually, even though it was very sparse, it's a little bit like one of those cup games where there's not many there, you know, in the Mickey Mouse Cup, and when it's actually quite interesting, quite exciting, then because obviously being in the middle of the M block, you could hear quite a bit of noise around the ground, and it created a little bit of atmosphere. So it was better. It was a huge improvement on the first half, I think probably the Rhodes injury probably did for us. I think we probably needed to keep him on if we were going to do anything.
Nice to see Keshi back at Bloomfield Road. He got a nice round of applause.
We lost John now.
He's warming up. No, I'm still here.
Still with us.
You must have a dead spot in your house, Tim, because you've got super fast broadband. All right, you're back. Yeah, I was just saying it was good to see Keshi back at Bloomfield Road. Tim, he got a good reception.
Why, if you lose, I'm not having the problem. So
I think you're out of sync on sound. That's what it is. It's when you're freezing, but it's not looking like you're freezing to you. So it's falling behind. But to answer your question, John, yeah, obviously I wasn't there, but he did well for us when he wasn't injured, didn't he, Keshi? And he's a class player. You know, he was fully fit for us. He'd be one of the first names on the team sheet, and it would be great if he was still with us. But yeah, I'm not surprised he got a decent reception, because he was a popular player.
Yeah. Right, out of the cup we go. Let's move on to Shrewsbury. Tim, we've just lost Tim. Shrewsbury 1, Blackpool 2. Nick, last night, obviously, I was 5 minutes late coming in from work. I was working in Cheshire, so just missed kick-off. Legged it in. Was messing around with the TV to get the match on. I was just scrolling through tons of message on the podcast patrons WhatsApp group, like loads of messages saying OMFG, I cannot believe what I've just seen. Yada yada yada. And I was like, what's happened here? I said, do you remember I'd put, what's happened? And then someone just put a link to the goal.
Yeah, and I was the same. I was doing stuff, and I thought I'm gonna miss kickoff here, but it'll be fine. It's only 2 minutes, and same as you, I was just firing me Sky up, and phone pinged. For fuck's sake, I can't believe it. I was like, no, surely not already. And then 2 minutes in, and then you see the goal, and it's not like they've put together some wonder move and scored a worldie. It's just a hopeful hoof up the pitch. And listen, everyone's going to probably call out Tyra for this, but I'm going to defend him to a certain degree, because when I saw that first, someone had posted a link and it was from behind the goal, and you kind of think, what the hell's happened there? But when I've seen it back and watched it a few times, it does take a hell of a bounce when it lands. And we did have a very, very high line defensively as well. So I'm not making excuses for him. But I think 9 times out of 10 that probably doesn't bounce like that and doesn't go over his head. But it's just typical at the moment when, you know, he's not been in great form. Well, neither keepers have they? Let's be honest. I can't remember a time when, we've always normally had one decent keeper even if backup wasn't always great. But at the moment, it's kind of much of a muchness, really. It's certainly something we need to look to address in January. But on this occasion for Tyra, I think you can probably look at the defence more than him, really. And as Craig says in the chat there, wind assisted. Don't think you necessarily realise that if you weren't there. But and you saw it as the game went on when we were shooting the other way second half. It made a real difference. So I think we can forgive him for that one. But that first 15 or 20 minutes, when I say we were all over the place, that's a boxing match. I think the ref would have been close to stepping in because we just looked like we were 11 blokes and we've all done it, turned up on a Sunday morning, never played together before, and everyone's still hungover or whatever else they'd been up to. And it looked like we were 11 strangers. And let's be honest, they're not great. They did well to beat Birmingham, to be fair. And they've got Ainsworth as manager who's going to have them fired up. But we were absolutely... I thought it was going to be 3 or 4 at that point in that first 15 minutes because he had another couple. Every time they got the ball, they looked dangerous when they went forward, and we looked all at sea and all over the place. Thankfully, after that, we kind of managed, we weathered that initial storm. And we weren't great the first half as it went on, but we did, I think, as the game went on, we got a little bit more possession without necessarily doing a lot with it. But then the second half, obviously, it was better.
Just laughing at that Mandy Porter, Nick's audio reminds me of the Coventry when in the 80s when England played in Hungary and Yugoslavia.
I don't know what it is because up until about 30 seconds before we started, it was absolutely fine.
Going on that view, yeah. Tim, who's at fault there? Keeper or defence? Bison says defence. Craig said wind assisted. So, who are you looking at fault for the goal?
I think to be fair, it's a bit of both, isn't it? I managed to do a Smith and miss it because
doing a lot of Smiths.
I was got in from work late and I was just getting grabbing a bit of tea, lost track of time, went in the front room to put it on, and I know, but it was obviously quite early, wasn't it? And so I missed. I've seen it back obviously since. And listen, I think Tyra shows a bit of inexperience, but I think it was a combination of weather, combination of high line, combination of him misjudging the flight of the ball, and you feel sorry for him really because the problem when you do something like that, particularly when you do it so early in the game, is you're dreading the prospect of it happening, something happening again, aren't you? And so he's got virtually the whole game where he's going to be on tender hooks, thinking I can't balls up again. And you've got to show character, and to be fair to him, I thought that he did, but he was incredibly shaky because I think he'd had a problem, and I missed that as well because it was just before the goal where he'd missed the flight of a ball from a corner as well. So but we're not factoring in the conditions, and apparently I wasn't there, but those that were there said it was a really, really badly swirling wind, and other players make mistakes and they get away with it. Miss sitters in front of goals, misplace a pass with a keeper. Quite often you make that type of mistake, and it really costs the side, doesn't it? So it comes with the territory of being a goalkeeper.
Mark was there last night. I'm glad I was there to see it. Otherwise, I'd have put it down to an AI wind up. There are a lot of those going around at the moment, Mark. Yeah, but the rest of the first half, as Nick alluded to just then, it would have been stopped on points if it was a boxing match. I just couldn't believe what I was watching for the first 15, 20 minutes. I mean, this is a team that was rock bottom as well. And I was thinking, Jesus Christ, what have we become? Watching us struggle and getting peppered with shots against Shrewsbury. If you look at the stats on the right-hand side of the screen there, 1.0 XG to them, 0.09. They had 11 shots to our 3, 2 of which were on target. They had two big chances missed. ironically, we had a bit more possession.
It's incredibly difficult for anybody who was at Charlton and Huddersfield, in particular. It's very difficult to actually visualize the fact this is the same team. Essentially, I know there's a few players out and injured, but every team gets that. But it's literally it's like it's the complete polar opposite of controlling a game, being comfortable on the ball, being inventive, being with players working together, feeding off each other, having a buzz, clearly enjoying the football, to what we're seeing at the moment, which is the exact opposite. It literally is the polar opposite. So we've gone from what looked like a team that could fight for promotion to a team who's going to struggle to stay in the division. And, you particularly that first half, I really feared for us because the way the game was panning out, I couldn't see us getting back into it. I know, the football, you always expect the unexpected, but you're looking at what we're watching, and after watching what we'd seen on Saturday and watching what we'd seen in other recent games, and I was thinking, where we're going to get a goal from? Where we're going to get a result from here? So and if we hadn't got the result, I think we were only going to be 2 points off the bottom four, which is going into that Christmas period with all the teams that we've got to play during that period. It wasn't, this is one game that I felt that we really, really had to win, because it was, you don't see, looking forward in your forward book, you're not seeing many points. Now, typical Blackpool, we might get them, but if you're predicting results against Wrexham and Birmingham away, and Wickham that comes up very early, I think that game's been called off, hasn't it, because the FA Cup, but or will be. But you're going to, you're looking at those games and you're thinking, Jesus, where are we going? Where are we going to be at the end of January, middle of January? So it was so important we got the result yesterday, and thank God that things changed.
Which nicely segues on to the second half. We'll bring the second half banner up. Nick, we've got back into the game on 52 minutes via another own goal. Talk us through it.
Yes, I think it'd come from our right, Apter on to Joseph, who I think he looked like he'd lost it at one point, but managed to regain possession and flicked it out to Hubby, who was in quite a bit of space. And he's drilled it across, and their defender, he kind of put his hands up to his ears afterwards to say nobody told me anything, because he's probably thinking there's a Blackpool player just on his right, so he's stuck out a leg, and unfortunately for us, unfortunately for them, it's quite a decent finish, to be fair. It's hit the back of the net, and listen, you take it when we're on the sort of run we've been on. I know we won the last league game, but prior to that, we'd had a bit of an alarming drop off. You take it, whatever comes. If it's off someone's backside or an own goal or whatever it takes to get you back in it, then happy days. And I thought then as the game went on, we did look, better and like we could possibly get another goal. Didn't necessarily see it coming from the two players it did come from, because in the chat I'd sort of said, I'm not convinced on either. And then they made me eat humble pie with Fletch with the assist and the superb finish from Josh Onema. I mean, what a great goal that was. And by hook or by crook, we've ended up, getting 3 points. And I get what Tim's saying, it's so different than what we were seeing against Charlton and Huddersfield. But then if you look at the table, we've jumped up a bit with those back-to-back wins, and as we're going to come and talk about on the game on Saturday, potentially another winnable game. And despite the poor run we've been on, we could be looking back up towards the other end of the table rather than looking over our shoulders in the space of 3 games. That's how much it can change, and we've got players to come back. Obviously, a couple who were missing with suspension last night who'll probably be back in contention on Saturday. So, and then we looked at that all-important window in January where I think Bison's has said in the comments ideally we need 5 or 6 in, and he's probably not wrong with that.
Tim, Josh Onoma, he's a bit of a, what's the word, mercurial talent, this lad. Only 27, he's represented England at several levels. I think he's another one of those players that we've talked about that seems to take an eternity to get match fit. He's getting more minutes under his belt at the moment. Maybe it's the time where the tide is going to finally turn for him. It was a great strike, and that's going to do you confidence a world of good as a footballer in his position. As we all know, football is a confidence game, serious confidence game. That'll have done him the world of good. So hopefully he's gonna push on from here, and we're going to see he might be a useful acquisition to keep him on after January.
If we keep him,
well, that's whether we offer a deal, isn't it?
Well, it all depends where we're shopping in January, doesn't it? Are we going to Iceland, or at least going to Aldi, and hopefully Booths?
I was about to say Booths for the residents of FY6.
I'm not expecting Booths, but I'm hoping that we might at least have a cheeky trip in and get a decent dinner.
Get some yellow stickers.
So I personally don't. Hopefully, if we're shopping in the posh aisle of at least one of those stores, then I don't think he's going to get his contract renewed. I don't think he's done enough. I think it's said in the chat by MB. I sort of agree with that. I don't think he's shown enough for us to really say he's actually going to add value over the season. I think it. I don't know where our ownership and our CEO see us, but if we want to have any chance of pushing on to try and get in the playoffs, which I'm not expecting it to happen, but if we want to have any chance of doing it, then we are going to have to add value to the side. We have to bring starters in, and I don't think he's a starter in the current team. And the players we need to bring in, we need 3 or 4 starters. Starting with a goalkeeper.
Sorry, Tim. I think the problem is, I think if he's fully fit, he is a very, very good player, and he probably walks into a lot of teams certainly in League One. The problem is, like Tim said, if he's not a starter for us, how do we get him to that level of fitness? It's only by playing games, because we don't really seem to play any, reserve team games or many that he could be involved in. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, really, because he probably has to play consecutive games, and then who knows if he was match fit, then he could make a difference. But if you've got Evans and Norburn fit, and you're playing a 4-4-2, that's probably they're your 2, aren't they? And then you've got Morgan coming back as well. So him sitting on the bench for 3 or 4 games and having a 20-minute cameo or whatever it might be isn't probably going to be enough for us, and isn't going to be enough for him. So I'm a bit in 2 minds with it, really, because if he was fully fit, I think he can add something. The problem is he hasn't been anywhere near, which is why I think he's been largely ineffective. I mean, we got a glimpse of what he can do last night, and what a strike it was. And as Mark said in the comment, he's probably shown a bit more than the likes of Finnegan, although Finnegan scored a very good goal in the Garage Cup or whatever it's called. The
Matty Cup.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just not sure if he's going to get enough games. Maybe because I don't know whether he's getting, he's going to get anything anywhere else.
He's only 27, Nick. It's like
I know, this is it. It is. If he could get fit, I do think he's got something to offer. And like Tim says as well, it depends on where we're doing our shopping in January. Because could it be, if Finnegan, do you send him back maybe, and that frees up a place?
I would.
Yeah, but we will see. We will see. But it was good at least to see him score. Is it the end of January? He's with us still. or just the start of January. I don't know, because that's a good. It's the end of January. It's a good few more games, isn't it? If you know he continues to get a chance.
Bison's is nailing his colours to the mast there. Get shot, nowhere near good enough. Tell us exactly how you feel, Bisons. Nick mentioned Albie Morgan there, Tim. Great to see him back. B, great to see him get 85 minutes under his belt. He's going to be a major asset over the Christmas period.
Massively missed him, haven't we? And it's so unfortunate because it struck up quite a good partnership with Evans, and he was probably playing the best football he played since he joined us. And then to get news like that, and it obviously takes time to adapt, to change. Well, I don't even profess to know what he's had to do to get himself back in the room, but I'm guessing he's had to change his diet, and then that impacts on his fitness, and so he's got to change the way he does certain things, I can guess. Because at the end of the day, whatever we think of some of them about their fitness levels, they are elite athletes, aren't they? And they are performing in an elite game. And if they need to be performing at 85, 90% plus to be effective. And if you get news like that and you realise that you've got to change things, that's going to have an impact on your fitness levels, isn't it? Not just your football fitness levels, but your actual, how far you can run and how quickly you can get there. If all of a sudden you can't eat certain foods that you've been used to, and you're having to change your diet and take some supplements or whatever, I don't know, but I can imagine there's a curve to deal with to get yourself back to where you need to be, and he's done it reasonably quickly, hasn't he? Which is great to see.
But no, we've ground the win out, and there wasn't any serious concerns for me that we weren't going to see the game out. The entire the XG for the entire game was 0.16 to their 1.53. It's a game that we have ground out, and it's a bloody good job we did, because we've played quite poorly, quite frankly, and we've got away with it. But nonetheless, it's good to see us having that resilience.
Yeah, and I think
coming back.
Yeah, that's it. And like I said before, you almost the result, the performance is maybe a little bit secondary on nights like that. It's get the win and then quickly move on and look to Saturday with the games coming thick and fast. Because had we not done, then again we're looking down the table rather than up. Yeah, and as the game went on, I mean, he ended up playing quite a lot of injury time, didn't he? And then Carl Joseph went off. I don't think that was his ankle again. Hopefully it's nothing serious. But yeah, we managed to hang on, and they didn't really ever look like threatening too much. And we didn't really either. I think Joseph had a shot, but that was about it. And we've got the win. Performance wasn't great, but main thing I think was 3 points, and then move on to Saturday. Like I say, with a couple of people coming back, hopefully we can make it 3 wins on the bounce in the league.
Yeah, I just forgot this one actually. Dave Jenkins has just put in the chat, Tim, I was concerned when they were firing corners in with our keeper stuck to his line. He did look shaky, Tyra, but did pull off a worldie of a save from one of those corners, if you remember. Really redeemed himself really with that save. All right, I think it was deemed offside in the end, but he wasn't to know that.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I think this comes back to the mistake as well, doesn't it? When you've made a mistake of the type that he did, and he had a role in that mistake, whether he was ultimately the one that was culpable, he clearly misjudged it. That you're not going to. I suspect that subliminally you're not going to want to be coming for balls in case you miss them, and you're the cause of another goal, are you? So maybe you stay in your line a bit more than you might otherwise have done, particularly if there's wind swirling around you and you're not quite sure of how the ball's going to fly. So maybe that's why he's done it. Again, we're closeted in our living rooms and our kitchens and wherever else, watching it in the warmth of our homes when there's a massive wind swirling around where they were, and rain and sleet or whatever else was knocking about. So it might have been a wise decision to stay on his line.
It's another way of looking at it.
Well, I think it is because it swirls, doesn't it? And if you're going to come, you've got to get the point. They always say, don't you? If you're going to come, you've got to get it. And if you're not sure you're going to get it because it's moving around in the air, then you don't. You leave it to your defenders and you stay on your line.
James Jason taking the contrarian view there, Tim. You can't play a keeper who cannot come off his line at a set piece. It's a valid point as well, James.
Well, it is if you're discounting the conditions. And again, I wasn't there, so I don't know how bad it was. I'm told it was pretty bad. And I would see, if I'm going to defend a player, I would say if a keeper can't come off his line, if it's swirling around, he doesn't know he's going to get it. I might be wrong, but he's a young lad, so I'm going to stick up for him.
Just before we wrap that game up, Nick, I mentioned before about Steve Bruce grinding the win out there in difficult circumstances. Fortunately, our esteemed colleague, Mr. Mitch, can't be with us this evening. And a bit like on the Sports Personality Awards, he's provided us not with a video insight, but some fabulous stats that he normally comes out with. I'll read this out for the benefit of the audio pod. You can see it on the right side of the screen. Blackpool FC with Bruce actually in the dugout. Won 6, drawn 2, lost 3. Points per game average 1.8, which is a projection over 46 games of 83 points. That's almost automatic player form. Without Bruce, under Critchley, Keogh and Agnew this season, won 0, drawn 3, lost 4 points per game, average 0.4. Projection after 46 games, just under 20 points, which is finishing bottom. Quite telling that, I think. Great stats as ever, Mitch.
Yeah, interesting, and it goes to show what can happen if he's not there, But at the same time, I think when he wasn't there, with the reason for it, I think that would affect everybody, the rest of the coaching staff and the players. But yeah, it is interesting to see, and I think probably you mentioned before about hairdryer treatment for the Birmingham game at half time. I would imagine he's probably had a few choice words at half time. Excuse me, last night as well, and that's possibly had a bit of an impact as well. So yeah, but interesting to see that we're a lot better off with him than without him. Someone's mentioned the chat as well, and I was just going to mention it before we finish talking about the game. The red card for Steve Agnew as well, where I think the ball came to him and it looked like he'd kind of kicked it on to maybe waste a bit of time. But MB said there it came off his shin, and the ref's assistant thought that he'd kicked it away because he got a straight red, didn't he? Had to make his way down the tunnel.
I wonder whether that was wind assisted or whether just shit.
One less Steve involved on Saturday.
One thing that just popped in my head before we move on to Rotherham. Let's talk Ash Fletcher, because in the second half I thought he did all right, and we've forgotten about the little headed layoff. Quite an intelligent little layoff for the Enoma goal.
Yeah, I think he does show. I think we've said all along. He does show some nice touches. I think his build-up play is probably his strong point. I think he's an intelligent player, and you see glimpses of that. But at the same time, you're not really at any point thinking. If you see his name on the team sheet, you're not thinking, right, well, there's a goal there from him, which ultimately, as a striker, is what you're paid to do. So who knows? Maybe it's more about playing him in a way that, I don't know, a 10 or whatever it might be, where we're getting more out of him in his build-up play than out and out striker, because the ball comes to him. near goal. You just don't feel, and he doesn't look confident as well. That's the thing. And if you look at his record, he's never been prolific in front of goal. So I don't know. For me, he's not a starter. He does do that build-up play quite well at times, but I don't necessarily think he's first name on the team sheet or anything like that. But then, if you look aside from Joseph, the other strikers aren't really doing it either. So he's not necessarily on his own in that, but just I don't feel confident that you're going to get much of a goal return out of him.
Tim, anything to add to that before we move on to Rotherham?
No, he doesn't. I quite liked him at the beginning of the season. I just think he's maybe a plan B and a make weight when we can't put our best strikers out. For me, I don't think the jury's out. I think the jury's probably come back and delivered its verdict on Ash Fletcher at the moment with most Blackpool fans.
Okay. Right, to wrap things up, Nick wanted 45 minutes. We're on 51. Sorry, Nick.
Best endeavours. Under an hour, we'll say.
Okay, let's try an hour. Right, Rotherham on Saturday. I'll bring up the graphic I've made.
Isn't the weather meant to be shocking again?
It is, yeah.
Yes, it is.
40, 50 mile an hour winds. I think the rain will just pass over by the time the game kicks off. I think the wind might have dialed down a bit. Yeah, it's not going to be great. I was actually surprised to see where they were in the league because I was expecting them to feature quite heavily for promotion. They're having a bit of a torrid time at the moment. If you look at the current form there.
I think the last 6, they've won 2, lost 4 in the last 6. And you want to know a reason for it, John, because I expected them to be probably in and around the playoffs. And the reason they're not is because I put them in my season accumulator to finish in the top 6, which is why they're comfortably in 18th place at the moment. So apologies, Rotherham fans, for that. But joking aside, I think they were. If you look at the odds from the bookies, they were probably one of the team that you'd expect to be, up the other, not necessarily top 2 or 3, but certainly higher up and doing better than they are doing. It's quite surprising to see them in 18th place. And I dare say he's probably under a bit of pressure there, Steve Adams, because I think there probably was that expectation that they'd maybe be there or thereabouts the playoffs at least at the moment.
Forgot it was him, Steve Evans. Let's get the pies in quick before half time. We'll run out quicker than they usually do.
I think we need to get our belief back as a club, don't we? I think there's a collective view at the moment that we're going nowhere and that we're going to struggle to get anywhere above mid-table at best. Where we are now, effectively, I think, is most people's views as to this is the highlight of the season is maybe finishing 12th or 13th or 14th. And something needs to shake us out of that, and whether it's a run along the lines that we had when Steve Bruce came in, or whether it's the owner and the CEO finding the voice and trying to instill some confidence in the fan base. Something needs to be done. It's very difficult to pinpoint as to what it'll actually be, but I look back to September and how optimistic I was, and it's all been crushed. It's all been gone. And I'm not the only one. It's everybody. It doesn't matter whether you're a home and away fan, a fire-stick fanny, as they call them, or whatever. Everybody seems to have the same view at the moment, that they've got no expectation of anything. And we should have an expectation of something. We should have an expectation that we can win games. And you've got to be the most optimistic of optimistic fans to actually go to a game at the moment and think that we're going to win or that we're going to win well. So we listen. We've got to put in with the wins we've got. We've got to put them in the context of who we were playing, and we're not playing, and we haven't played well. I don't believe while doing it. So we need to find our mojo again. And I think I don't know how it happens. Something's got to get us going. We're out of the cup.
We need a spark. We need a big home win. That's what we need. We need a crushing 4-0, 5-0
Yeah,
home
a little bit like the Burton home game that was quite. It was quite convincing, wasn't it? We need something like that, or we need to go to Wrexham and win, or Birmingham and win, and do something that's not expected, and do it well. Not just do it, but do it well, play well, and like we did with those 2 back-to-back away games at Charlton Huddersfield, because that got people thinking, Jesus, this is a good team. And we can't just turn into a bad team. Maybe we overperformed and we got giddy, but we did get giddy, and we want to get the giddiness back, because that's what football's all about. It shouldn't be about being miserable. It shouldn't be about turning up and thinking, well, I'm here, and at least I have to queue for a drink. I'd rather queue for a drink or not go for a drink because there's so many people there that I can't get anywhere near the bar. That's what I want. I don't want to be able to wander in and there be no queue. It's a novelty, but it's not a novelty I want to see every home game, because it suggests that we're on our uppers. So, yeah, hopefully there's something lurking, whether it's Saturday or whether it's, the next home game, or whether it's some stellar, not that we ever have performed over Christmas, but if maybe a stellar run over Christmas, something needs to galvanise everybody to get back in that zone. We can start with Rotherham.
Yeah. Funny you should say that, Tim, because I don't know if anyone else is the same. When I watch games on TV now, when we score, I barely react. Days gone by, I'm jumping around the room. I'm up off my seat straight away, celebrating. I'm like, it's like yesterday. I was like, even when we scored that second goal, I was like, yeah, obviously I was going yes, but it's just like almost a roll of the eye.
Because you don't think it means anything because of where we are in the
weird.
league. It's only going to be, we might have gone up a place, but we're nowhere near the top. We're not actually really fighting for survival. We might have been if we'd lost on Thursday, but so on Wednesday.
Still 7 off the playoff.
Yeah.
We jumped up, 6 places in the last couple of games, haven't we? So at least it's
yeah, but it gives us a little bit of a springboard
platform.
So, but we need probably another 3 good results on top of the 2 reasonable ones we've had.
Yeah.
To push us close to where we should have been anyway, but for that collapse we had after Steve's unfortunate news. So, and it's where we're getting that from. I want to see Joseph and Gabriel piss themselves laughing with each other at the end of the game like they were at Burton and taking the piss out of Critchley. I want to see fun, and it looked like there was fun, and the fun seems to have gone. And the reality is, it's heavily based on performance, isn't it? So we're either going to bring in some really, really good players, something that's going to make us go wow, and that's going to give us a kick on, or it's the fact that Bruce is about and he's going to use his canny ways to keep replicating the form that Mitch has referenced, which will push us up the table, or something else. That some the team collectively are going to pick up where they left off after Huddersfield, because players like Evans look like a shadow of the players they were at that point at the moment. And it's a long old season, isn't it? And it's cold and horrible, and it's not. The pitches get a bit. I believe the pitch wasn't great on last night. The pitches aren't what they were, and you're carrying a knock or whatever it is. So there's all sorts of things that contribute. But Jesus Christ, it's been hard work last 2 months, and we need something to, we need that. We need the Raggy Aid, the Red Bull, the whatever it is that gets us going. We all want it, don't we? We all want to do well. We all want to be absolutely buzzing in the game. We all want to be going, should we do a podcast tonight? Because it's so good, we want to do a podcast straight away. When was the last time we even contemplated that? We don't, do we? Because
it's a drag to get 3 people in it to go and do one.
That's it. It's the fact that we've got a group of 6 or 7, and they're not, people aren't fighting to come on because they're not engaged, they're not excited
because of the general malaise. So, I've put out a tweet today, injured and suspended. We've had a terrible injury record so far this season. Let's just go through this quickly. So, out for the next game, we've got John Rhodes out with a concussion. Ollie Casey suspended. Ollie Norburn suspended both 1 games. Hayden Coulson quad injury.
Can I say, how's Ollie Norburn got suspended? He's only played about 6 games all season.
He's been booked every game.
I saw that. I thought, how the fuck is that?
I know. I thought it was a misprint. Coulson quad injury. Back in a couple of weeks. CJ, again, couple of weeks. Muscle injury. Baggett, 4 to 6 weeks. Thigh injury. Beasley, after Christmas, medial ligament. Andy Lyons, obviously, his ACL back after Christmas. And Sonny Carey, muscle injury. Just as Sonny Carey was kicking on, he got an injury, muscle injury, 2 to 3 weeks. So, look at that list, and all of them are knocking on the door of the first team. So it's obviously a contributing factor. Nick, you want to say something?
No, I was going to say you've got to take all of that into account, and it will have an impact, particularly when we've got a manager who wants to play ideally a 4-4-2. So you're going to have square pegs in round holes, or you need to adapt your system. Of that, it'll be good that we've got Casey and Norburn back. You would expect them to slot straight back in for Saturday, so that'll give us a little bit more, hopefully. And then the others, Baggett's it's been one injury after another with him, hasn't it? Unfortunately, the little bits we saw of him, he looked quite decent. Shame for Rhodes as well, because he's probably saying, "I feel absolutely fine and I want to play," but the protocol, isn't it? I think it's 10 days, so unfortunately he has to miss out again. And again, CJ, he gives us that pace, particularly in a 4-4-2, because he's one of our only 2 wingers. So I think you've got to factor in all of that with that run we've been on recently. But a couple back for Saturday, so fingers crossed. And I think it's a winnable game. Like you said, John, when I looked at the league table, I was actually surprised that they were in 18th place. Someone's mentioned in the comments there they've not sold out their initial allocation, so let's do it
as well.
Yeah, let's get the win and get the place rocking again.
Let's do a pick our team then. Just before we go, we'll do our predictions. Let's bring the thing up. I always forget how to do this, so let's make it a bit bigger. So we're obviously going with a 4-4-2. Keeper Tim.
I'm sticking with Tyra. I think you drop him now, you never play him again. I think you go one more game with him and see what's happening.
Nick, do you concur?
I do, yeah, because I know I've said it's much of a muchness, and it is, but I would stick with him.
Okay, based on the personnel available, who do we play?
I think Casey comes back in for me as one of your centre halves.
Was he suspended last game?
Yeah,
definitely. With Pennington, or are we putting a Fire there? It was good to see a Fire back, actually.
Yeah, I think I'd have O'Fire at centre back. I think we play right back. We lose too much in the centre.
Yeah, I agree. Are we bringing Gabriel back in then?
I would.
Nick?
Yeah, I'd agree.
Jimmy at left?
It's got to be Jimmy, isn't it?
Yeah. Played well, Jimmy, last game, actually. Thought he did well. Into the midfield, Tim. Penny for your thoughts.
Well, I'm going to go and try. We haven't got Norben, have we? So it's got to be Evans and Morgan, hasn't it? Centre mids.
Norben's back, isn't he?
I thought Norben was out for this game.
Oh, is he out?
Thought he was.
He was out last night.
I thought he said he was out. If I misunderstood, I probably.
It was Casey and Norben last night, wasn't it?
Right, I might have misread what John put on the thing.
Yeah, so I think you'd probably go. I'd go Norben. They're both available.
Right, Bison's just saying Norben's back, so I think I misread it. I thought he was out for this next game. So maybe Norben and Evans then for me then to start. 'Cause I think Morgan's still working his way back to fitness, isn't he?
I'm not sure. I think Morgan adds more. I'd be tempted to pick Morgan and Evans personally, but I'll go with the majority.
Go on, I'll go Morgan. I said Morgan in the first place.
Sorry, Nick. 2-1. 2-1. Right, Apter. He's not been pulling up trees recently, Rob Apter, has he? There's been rumblings about his performances, but there's no one else in that position. Obviously, there's no CJ, so he goes into the team. Agreed?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I still think he's probably one of our most likely players to create something even on a quiet day. So, and there isn't another right winger, is there?
Who's going left wing then?
Well, we don't have one.
Elliot Embleton's left-footed, isn't he?
Not a winger, but I think that's probably what you do. Whether he actually plays it as an out-and-out 4-4-2, because he'll naturally drift inside Norben, won't he? Because he's not a winger.
Embleton, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, Embleton.
Tim?
I think if Coulson was fit, I'd be banging the drum for him to play there, but he's not. So I think it is what it is. I thought he had quite a good game against Bolton, but we're not going to. Yeah, maybe Tomo. Raggy would pick Thompson.
Are you just playing devil's advocate there, David, with your Thompson? Should we pick DT for the lols?
No. Get Elliot Embleton in.
Yeah. Right up front. Joseph, obviously.
I'm going Ballard with him.
Joseph and Ballard, and I know Ballard's not been prolific, but again, look at what's available.
There we go. Tyra, Husband, Fire, Casey, Gabriel, Embleton, Evans, Morgan, Apter, Ballard, and Joseph is the team to beat, draw against, or lose to Rotherham. Gentlemen, give me your predictions as I put this on X.
I'm going to be optimistic, and I'm going to go 2-0 to the Pool.
Rotherham have only won one game away all season. Just add that to the mix. Tim?
0-0.
Oh, viewers, get your predictions in. Bison says 2-2. Poor weather, 2-2. Poor weather, a lot of mistakes, howling wind. There's going to be at least a goal for each team. But I think Blackpool are going to... Oh, no, howling wind. It favours big shithouse teams, doesn't it? It favours Steve Evans' teams. So... 2-1 Rotherham.
Yeah. Miserable sods.
Anything else before we go? It's like any
No,
meeting.
because we're way over time.
Any other questions?
Oh, just BST AGM in the Armfield on Saturday.
In the Armfield? What?
In the Armfield, yeah. I
The
don't know
muckers
whether they're
allowing
gonna let me in or not,
the muckers allowing BST at the Armfield. You're having a laugh.
I think if you're a paid up member, you get a free drink as well. So it's more of a bit of a social, this one, I think. Rather, I don't think the agenda is going to take too long to run through. So hopefully, we'll see a few of the people on here there. And if you don't get a free pint, I might buy you one.
First item on the agenda: Mr. T. Fielding's ascension to director of Blackpool Football Club. Blackpool Football Club.
Blackpool Football Club.
Get yourself a fedora, Tim. Right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for downloading. Do like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. All we said is, what up the pool? Let's beat those.
Up the pool.
Up the pool. Go the pool.
Up the pool.
Been involved in 2. Can he make 3? Not on this occasion. Well taken by Walsh. Davis is on the far side. Ainscough coming square. That's the ball. That's a good try.